I'm going to ask a quick favour. If you're listening to this, please hit the subscribe button and the follow button. Like, share, rate, review the podcast. It helps more than you realise.
And then she looked at me and she just flipped. So it was a very severe issue she had. And she produced a lighter out of her pocket. And she said, I'm just going to blow us all up. And she really definitely meant it. It wasn't just a, I didn't even know she had, it's just incredible. And I could tell that she literally held it in front of my face like that. And I literally had the flash of, right, that's it, I'm done. But I wouldn't change any of it. I learned so much about myself, and the best thing I really learned from it is that we are all only ever equal, no matter what you are doing, whether you're sat on the street begging for 2p or if you're in your beautiful 8-bed mansion house. Those two people will always and forever be equal. And often the ones that have obviously the least are actually the more humble, kindest people on the planet, ironic. It's not just about the numbers. It's about doing something more. And those are the kind of people that come my way because there's something in my message that appeals to them. And actually they've realised that the numbers are in the bank accounts, the charts are all looking fantastic. However, that has only fulfilled them to some degree. And you mentioned at the beginning in the intro, what I call empty success syndrome. And you've achieved that, but actually partly it was never about that. It was about, again, you're proving something to someone possibly, and also that there's only a certain level of fulfilment that gives, and it's what do I do now? Who am I now? What have I learned? And what can I do to give that incredible experience? The negatives of that is the guys have to. It's all about striving for more, bigger house, bigger car, better car, holidays, holiday home. There's this continuum that obviously companies, corporates, we're a market economy. The corporates encourage us to feel and think like this as well, and it's all BS, quite frankly. And I've met too many miserable millionaires, so it is absolutely BS. Because one question I'd like to throw in is very hot potato for me at the moment. If this is resonating. The key question to ask yourself at any point in your life, but especially if you're on that ladder, it's like, what is the feeling you're looking for? What's the feeling you desire that you feel, that you believe you're going to get when you've achieved that? The existence for humankind in the developed world, there's an irony, is up here. The existence is here. This is where all the stress is. We're not just in our brain. We've forgotten our hearts. And dropping into the heart consciousness and allowing yourself to breathe you start breathing, your internal systems, your chakras will start engaging with each other more. And that's where our truth is, that's where our presence is, that's where our richness is. It's in our hearts, and dropping into that and allowing that true sense of feeling and of love. It's real simple. All you need is love.
Welcome to the County Business Talks podcast, powered by Picture Book Films. Here, we're going to be talking to entrepreneurs and business owners from across Sussex, delving into the mindsets of what makes them really tick. Okay, welcome to another episode of the County Business Talks podcast. So my guest on the podcast this week has had quite a diverse career. Since leaving the police force in 2003, she's become a consultant, mentor, coach, keynote speaker, international best-selling author and publisher. She helps many of her clients find answers to the biggest questions, your what, why and how, and believes success is to be felt deeply, not simply viewed objectively. Delighted to welcome Jo Baldwin Trott to the podcast. Jo, how are you?
I'm really good, thank you, Sam. Really good to be here.
Awesome. So we've obviously met recently, and a couple of people mentioned, you should get Jo on. And I just when we sat opposite each other and we was talking about stuff the other day at the lunch, I was like, look, it's going to be a fascinating conversation. I couldn't wait to get you on. So look, thanks for coming in.
Pleasure.
We're going to jump straight in. Obviously, just mentioned there about your sort of career and leaving the police force and stuff. So, tell listeners a little bit about your background and your story and where that sort of started and then where you are now.
Yeah, so I was one of the few at school that knew what I wanted to be when I grew up. The irony is I'm still growing up and I still don't know. But, so I was the one that always knew, and I wanted to be a police officer. And it was partly because there was neighbours in my little village I lived in, and there was a couple, a man and a woman, who were police officers. And now, looking back, hindsight and obviously retrospect, there was something about them, their honesty and their absolute passion for what they did, and that kind of right for justice. I really relate to that, and everyone sort of really, really sort of listened to them. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. I really would like to do that and like to support that, putting things right in society, because obviously I had a magic wand, I could just wave it the minute I started. So that was my real calling at that time. And so everything about my career, my education, I went travelling first. Thought, I'm going to get the travelling out of the way. I went to Australia, worked in the outback for a year.
Wow.
And then I sort of worked in Africa, and then just did some crazy, just different work just to get experience. Got my degree, did a business degree. Thought, right, I've got that. So I was quite strategic, even though on paper it looks a bit random. It wasn't as random as it looks, I promise. But ultimately I just was just fulfilling all my kind of desires at the time, and really listening to my gut, which was saying, oh, wait to go to university, don't rush. So when I did my business degree, I really enjoyed it, and I was really grateful to have some amazing mentors and some amazing lecturers who inspired me, taught me about the importance of brand, obviously something you're very good at, Sam. But all these things. So that was all nuts and bolts. Started the police, and I'd already been a special constable for 2 years, so I'd got a feel for policing in Bristol. But I must admit, probably within 6 months I could have walked out the door. So it was the biggest shock for me is actually joining, and then my expectation. And actually now I look back, realising that the reason why, and this is part of my message for today and always, the reason why I wanted to be a police officer wasn't actually what I really wanted to do. I was trying to prove something to someone.
Right, okay.
And
Wow.
it took me sort of 40 years to really break that down and be honest with myself about that, because everyone said, oh, Jo really wants to be a police officer. I'm like, yes, I really want to be a police officer. But the reason why I wanted that was not for me, it was for someone else. So it all kind of fell. Well, so I do believe life brings us what we are emitting, what we're putting out comes to us. Law of attraction is another way of putting it. And so I wasn't feeling good about what I was doing, wasn't there for the right reasons. So I was feeling that. I was feeling confused, and I was the classic alpha female. There's no such thing, obviously. It doesn't exist. And it all went wrong quite early on. And
that must be a difficult thing to like you say, to go through something that you go, right, this is 100%. Like my wife wanted to be a solicitor. That was 100% what she wanted to do, and she's still doing it now and still loves it, which is great. And that's quite unique, actually, because not many people do know, do they, when they sort of leave school. But then to go down that path and then be hit by, actually, this is not what I want to do. That's a different, like from a mindset point of view. Like you say, I guess part of you thinks, well, no, it is what I want to do. So you just keep going for a longer period of time. But I did, and it was a lot of ego. I had to let go of a lot of the ego around it. And a lot of police officers were like, someone actually said this to me. So I was sort of I was 9 years in all total. I was 7 years in, and someone said to me, well, if you hang on another 10, then you've got your 17, and then it's only another sort of 8 years, and you can retire at 25 years. I said, can you see me? Can you see how unhappy? I was driving to work on a Monday morning feeling physically sick. I had to stop the car sometimes. My stress levels and unhappiness levels were so high. I said, that is not a life for me, but there are people that see themselves as trapped for financial reasons, for pensions. But I am grateful for all of it. I had some incredibly bonkers experience as a police officer. The things that happened to me were quite surreal, actually, and so many in such a short time. So I felt the universe was saying, well, how many messages do you need to get the frick out of here? Hand in your badge and walk out the door. And eventually I sort of listened, but I nearly had to die a few times first. And thankfully I didn't. So I feel like a bit of a cat, really, with 9 lives. I don't know how many I've got left, but hopefully a few. Are you able to delve into any of those experiences?
So actually a lot of them were to do with mental health.
Right, okay.
So a woman in a very, very tough estate in Bristol called Southmead, and this woman who was elderly and had very difficult mental health issues, older woman, lived by herself. We had a call, and it was quite a regular call. Oh, there's a gas smell coming from a property. So I went in with my colleague, and there was a woman, a very frail little old woman, sat on the stairs. And so, she was just babbling, and the house stunk of the gas. You could literally, and all the windows was closed. It was cold day, cold night. Yeah. And so she, you could just, we've got to get out of here. But she was tiny. She was very frail. The last thing I wanted to do was really grab her, and shove her out the door.
Yeah, sure.
So I was doing my usual. I wasn't a very good police officer. My arrest rate was really bad because I was just talking to her and saying, we'll come and help you. Let's get out of the house because it's obviously gas. And then she looked at me and she just flipped. So it was a very severe issue she had. And she produced a lighter out of her pocket. And she said, I'm just going to blow us all up. And she really definitely meant it. It wasn't just a, I didn't even know she had, it's just incredible. Wow. And I could tell that she literally held it in front of my face like that. And I literally had the flash of, right, that's it, I'm done. And amazingly, my co-police officer saw this, literally grabbed both of us and shoved us out of the, literally pulled us out. He's quite thankfully a big chap, and just pulled us both out of the house before she could literally just press on the lighter to blow it all up. And then
how old was you then?
Well, this was like mid-20s. Yeah, wow. And then someone literally did try to knock me over and kill me, and he admitted that. He was, I was in plainclothes unit, and I was hunting him for months, really. He was ringing cars, he was involved with them. A lot of very top-level car ringing and drugs. And we had almost a personal vendetta, and he literally missed me by an inch doing 30 miles an hour.
Wow.
And I saw my life kind of. And then the other one was when I was, actually there's two more. There's quite a few. But
in such a, I guess, like 7 years or 9 years within that, to go through those, like you say, I guess, alluding to what you said earlier about there's signs there maybe that this is, and was there part of you that felt this is part of the job, part of being a police officer, this is what we have to deal with, so if I'm up for that then I'll carry on doing it? Or was it like, wow, this is continually happening to me, this is, how did you feel?
No, it's only now I look back I can see that the ridiculousness of it, that all these things happened, it was one thing after another. That I can see that, but no, at the time the mentality, and it's part of my reason of doing my why really now, is that there was an innate kind of acceptance that we've seen, the bodies I've seen, dead bodies, in the States, and the road accidents, and the things I've seen as a human being, which, and similar for people in the army that, are on the front line, any sort of sometimes medical staff as well. When you're, as a human being, you're seeing that level of just destruction to the body, and also how horrible people can be to each other. Experience the levels of violence I've experienced. I've been beaten up, and all of that just is accepted because you've got the number on your shoulder. 2684 is my number. I'm just another Bobby on the beat, Doris, as we were called as female police officers. And so it was accepted. And the worst thing was that it was just at the end of the shift, "You all right, Jo?" Yeah, I'm okay. Oh, good. See you tomorrow then. And that was it.
Wow.
That was it. And it's only now I think that hopefully if anyone has got a police officer in the family, or that we can hear this, where I think we've got more compassionate, our consciousness has grown, that we can really understand that actually those kind of jobs are testing the very essence of human nature. Because to switch all that off, and probably the worst case was a paedophile case, because I just couldn't switch it off. And to be able to do that, you either have that natural level of resilience, which I definitely didn't have, or you haven't, and it takes its toll. So it took its toll, and actually I had a load of crap going on internally and a load of harassment. I'm not the average looking police officer, I suppose. And I did have a bit of an attitude about being equal. And so I attracted a lot of confused masculine energy, is what I now can see it as. And that caused a lot of problems. And I put my hands up. I was responsible for part of it too, because of what I was emitting, the energy I was taking to work. Eventually I left Sam, thank goodness, but I wouldn't change any of it. I learned so much about myself, and the best thing I really learnt from it is that we are all only ever equal, no matter what you are doing, whether you're sat on the street begging for 2p, or if you're in your beautiful 8-bed mansion house. Those two people will always and forever be equal. And often the ones that have obviously the least are actually the more humble, kindest people on the planet, ironically.
Wow. That's quite powerful. I you know what? That's a lovely thing to think. Like, we'll go on to it a little bit later. Obviously, a little bit about sort of wealth and success and what that sort of looks like with people. But I just want to touch on something there about like when you come out, when you finally come out of the police force. It's interesting to say that you wouldn't change it, which is great because you look back. Because was there a point that you felt like you'd failed at that? A police officer, or would you look, I'd done that and I realised it wasn't for me, and you come out of it? Because I'm just keen to, some things we go on a certain path in life and we go, right, that's why I've done it many times. No, this isn't for me, and you look and you go, okay, maybe I've failed at that, but my relationship with failure is actually, I don't think too bad. I'm okay with it because I think it's just a learning curve and it's feedback. How did you feel around that point when you come out of it?
Yeah, absolutely right. And I could have left after 3 years. Really, that was that possibly when I could have left, and it would have been much easier for me. But the thought of failure, even though I don't believe there's such a thing anymore, the thought of that and what people would say, and having to say to people, and still now actually, when I mention to people that I was in the police force, they say, "Oh, why didn't you stay in?" And I always come back with, why didn't I leave earlier? But the preconception, this again, part of the incredible narrative, and so much of it is toxic, that when you take on a role that has that level of importance, every role is important, is what I believe now, but that level of importance, commitment, obviously the training was intensive. It was a lifelong career. And because it's got that label, and there are so many jobs that have labels like that, and kind of perceived importance levels, it was really, really tough. Because people literally, even the police and out of the police, would say, well, you can't, I was told, if I had a pound every time I was told this, you can't leave the police.
Wow.
So it was definitely the worry and the fear that I'd given myself, that people would judge me. They'd see me as there's something wrong with me, as failing. And it took a lot for me to suddenly realise, and eventually within myself, and it's just obvious stuff, self-belief. There's only one person that needs to judge me. In fact, nobody needs to judge me. I don't even need to judge myself. But the judge and jury that I'd given of everyone else was holding me in that place. And I'd given them that importance, especially family for me, because that was where what I feel is some people have this deep-rooted kind of judge and jury, and it's generally one person. There's one person sat there with the I should be able to remember the name of the hammer that you hit on the board. Been in court enough times. But there's generally one person. There was one person there for me, and I was like, right, okay, if I leave, that person's going to really give me, they're just going to judge me, and they're going to berate me and see me differently. So, I would say to anyone who's listening to this now, who relates to this story, you could be anything. You could be simply, I know in a lot of Indian cultures, there's a lot of women that work in, for example, doctor education, because there is so few options that they're encouraged to do with some families. But ultimately, if your heart's desire and your compassion in you being you isn't in that job, then you're hiding you and you're not being you, and that will only have its consequences physically, emotionally, and energetically. So
It's amazing. It's so. I always go back to that self-belief, and my twins are 7 now, and I think like teaching them just to be passionate about stuff, and always trying to drum in to follow their dreams and have that sort of, and whatever life looks like, not to ambition or whatever, but just as long as, because ultimately living life true to who we are is got to be I think we might have spoke about it a little bit offline, but about the 5 regrets of the dying, and the key one is not living a life, true to myself. Like, if that is the biggest regret, why? So many people live their lives not like that, don't they? So many people live to other people's expectation, I guess, of what that is.
They do, and they allow that to be their kind of blueprint for their life.
Yeah.
And actually, when you ask a lot of people, who are you, they don't even know. And that is where I'm at, really, is that, I give people the opportunity to say, well, who are you? What really gets you excited? What really are you passionate about? What really drives you? What do you love really to do? And the hamster wheel that so many people live on, they never really give themselves that experience and that time just to sit and go, well, who am I really, and who am I now? That's another thing. We tend to see ourselves, 5 years past or 10 years ago, or for me, a certain age, because I'm sticking at that, I'm never getting older. But we see ourselves and that image of ourselves, and in a certain role especially, we hold, and we're that. For me, like my graduation day, my mum actually came. My mum and I have had quite a difficult relationship, so she came to my graduation. I remember seeing that, and that was my blueprint. But I'm that person, that one of the few females that passed all the training, and did really well, and got there and stood there and graduated as a police officer. But ultimately, that is kind of. That was me then, and we're always we're here to evolve. We're human evolving beings, and that's the biggest gift we can give to ourselves. To say, that was me. Who am I now? Let me give myself time to look at that, and there's no such thing as failure. There's only experience. There is no such thing as failure.
I love that. And I think we mentioned it again before. I've done a talk about failing, exactly that. I do really believe, and I think I try, even with the kids, try and teach them about it's okay to make mistakes, and because if you try and you learn from that, and then you go and do that next thing, and I think it's such an important thing. I think I want to talk a little bit about obviously the last couple of years has been really tough, obviously, for many businesses. Talk to me a little bit about those last couple of years, and what you, especially sort of some of the clients you've sort of worked with, you've probably seen people go through many ups and downs during that period. What sort of advice and stuff was you speaking to them about during that time?
Well, interestingly, that the clients that have come my way have been the people that have actually done so well. And there's an interesting parody, because you did it then. If you don't, just being really honest, you did it then. Oh, so many businesses have struggled.
Right.
So many businesses have succeeded. So many businesses have grown here in Brighton. Brighton Gin's never been doing better. So there are so many businesses that have excelled, and I think that it's important to balance that conversation out, because those are the ones that have come my way. So yes, I am personally slightly involved, because a lot of my clients are in that space. But actually, it was a phenomenally testing time and unforeseen, and that's the key part of it, isn't it? There's so many businesses that did manage to divert what they do and mould it slightly differently. I don't like the word pivot. I think that feels like you're going on a different direction. You're generally going on the same direction, but there were a lot of businesses that did phenomenally well, and actually some of those business owners are almost a little bit kind of like embarrassed about that. And I remember at the business show last June, Acumen business law, the business law
gathering,
which was incredible. 300 people. In fact, I think it's next.
Yes, Wednesday.
Oh, it's tomorrow.
Yes, tomorrow. Yeah.
Or this will be past when the podcast comes out. But there were so many success stories there. And that is just so exciting to hear, because I do really believe that is the yin and yang of life, the shadow and the light, that there are so many success stories. So I have been mentoring, and I work very guidedly. So Spirit came to me and said, you've got to harness this success. And so there's a lot of coaches that come my way, really successful coaches, top-level coaches. Some of them I can't tell you about. But they come my way, and they are looking for support now to do. They've felt that calling, the internal, what I call internal calling, to do something more. It's not just about the numbers. It's about doing something more. And those are the kind of people that come my way, because there's something in my message that appeals to them, and actually they've realised that the numbers are in the bank accounts, the charts are all looking fantastic. However, that has only fulfilled them to some degree, and you mentioned it at the beginning in the intro, what I call empty success syndrome, and you've achieved that, but actually partly it was never about that. It was about, again, you're proving something to someone possibly, and also that there's only a certain level of fulfilment that gives, and it's, what do I do now? Who am I now? What have I learned? And what can I do to give that incredible experience? Because I do believe, and I'm being really quite specific about this, that people that have done that and managed that, and there's the founders, I generally work with the founders or top directors, they now have a skill set and an ability, and they have the financial capacity to do something quite miraculous and remarkable, because they can now use that to do the very best they can for something on a bigger scale. And I feel like it's not giving back, because there's nothing to go back to. It's more about giving out, and giving out more of your time, of your expertise, where you can actually say, well, I'm so grateful I've had that now, I've experienced that. What can I do for others? Which is even more profound, even more of a legacy than what I've created already.
And I guess, like you say, it's just allowing people to have, or finding what their purpose is, because like you said, those numbers in a bank account will only get people so far, but that doesn't deliver purpose. I think I mentioned when I interviewed Kevin Byrne, who sold Checker Trade. It was like, very wealthy guy, and sold Checker Trade with 90 million. But that conversation I had with him, I was overwhelmed by the fact that when he talked about the business, he loved it, and you could tell there was that when he talked about the money, it was anti-climax almost, that it was, because that purpose then had almost been taken away from me. And I find that whole thing, because as entrepreneurs, as business owners, it's part of it. I know when I certainly started on that journey, you look at it and go, that's where I'm trying to get to, because I want that the Ferrari, the Lambo, those material things, and money is what's going to give that. That's where my success. And when you change that narrative in your head, it's not there, because it's not a destination. It's that the process and the journey and the purpose is where all that lies.
Yeah, because that's all just numbers.
Yeah,
it's actually just numbers. Whatever those assets are. Kevin's got a few Banksies, like proper ones.
Yeah.
And he's got a Constable. He's got an incredible collection, and that's all there. But that's only part of him, isn't it? And like you say, I've spoken to him personally, and he's a really kind of wonderful example, but now he's really trying to support in other ways, and he's looking for other ways to give what he's learned. But fundamentally, we all desire to be on a quest. Most guys, like, well, if when you were 5 years old, did you have a sword? Were you on a quest to achieve something? That hasn't gone away. You're still that 5-year-old. Women the same. Whatever that looks like for you, but we are here to be on a quest. We're on a journey of adventure, and that's something I feel like I just really try and embrace. When I talk to people, it's like, you are still on that adventure. That 5-year-old is part of you still, and let that come through. Let that exist. And often it can be as simple as, what did you really want to do when you were young? Really young. What did you love to do? What did you pretend to do? I pretended to be a teacher, and I love standing up in front of all my friends and being the, so interesting author, no surprises. But the money has like I say, the journey for the money and the reason to create that is often about a level of proving something, and it might be to you, but in my experience of mentoring hundreds of people, it's for someone else. Wow. And when you take that out of the equation, you let go. So I very much believe in the phrase of letting go. Identify what something is and let it go. Yeah. And you let go of that. It's like, I no longer need that. It served me till now. But what can I do now for others? Yeah. And that's really different. That changes everything, because ultimately the numbers game is all about achieving it partly for yourself and your shareholders, but that's all just numbers. What can you do? What can you personally, in your own unique way, do for others? And that really flips things on its head. And I'd love to mentor Kevin if he's listening. Yeah. Kevin, you got my number. Because you guys, you've got this incredible, and there are a lot of women that have this too. But I've been guided very spirit to work very much with men, because I've got this understanding of how men hide away. They hide away the internal. But that people like in this position, you have a unique set of gifts. What you're doing now, Sam, with what you're doing, this is incredible. This is an incredible gift to people listening, to give these messages and value and hope and inspiration.
It's really kind of, like we alluded to, it's something I obviously love doing. I find it, I'm really keen with those bits there, but a couple of things. You talk about the spirituality side of stuff. Have you always been very spiritual? When did that can you pinpoint where that sort of come, and you like a calling, I guess, in a certain way? And also keen to, like you say, about the understanding of men and stuff. What experience in relation to that as well? Keen to explore those two things.
Yeah, well, I'll start with that if you like, because the other one goes off on quite a different tangent.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, go
if you're ready for it, Sam.
I'm ready.
Okay. So the understanding of men, it's obviously, having worked in the police for 9 years, I was in tech. One of my many jobs before I joined the police was tech. My dad was the classic man, ran a successful construction business. It wasn't really till he semi-retired to Devon that he suddenly realised he'd been freaking miserable his whole life, and doing what he was doing. Not the building, but running a business. Yeah. So I've spent a lot of time around men and really have seen firsthand how men create this conditioning and coping strategies to hide themselves away, their emotions, their truth, their kind of creativity, and the conditioning, sadly, the cultural conditioning and the ancestral conditioning through definitely British, the British culture has been for men to be cookie cutters of themselves. And you go around Mayfair, and I call them the Mayfair minions, and you see all these guys that look exactly the same, wearing exactly the same colours, exactly the same kind of suit, and they have that same look on their face, and it's lost. There's no inspiration, there's no excitement. They are minions of themselves because they've been on that route. It's like academic route, success route, all about the numbers route, and that's been their conditioning. That's what you do. That's what you're here for. It's not actually. That is what you've been given as a message as society, and also, aside from that, and that's all fairly positive. The negatives of that is the guys have to. It's all about striving for more, bigger house, bigger car, better car, holidays, holiday home. There's this continuum that obviously companies, corporates, we're a market economy. The corporates encourage us to feel and think like this as well. And it's all BS, quite frankly. And I've met too many miserable millionaires. So it is absolutely BS, because one question I'd like to throw in is very hot potato for me at the moment. If this is resonating, the key question to ask yourself at any point in your life, but especially if you're on that ladder, it's like, what is the feeling you're looking for? What's the feeling you desire that you feel, that you believe you're going to get when you've achieved that? And I'm a regular BBC radio thingy, you know.
Yeah.
And Eddie Nestor and I have some great conversations. So, you know, Eddie Nestor from one of the London DJs.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I've got to get to point B, Joe. It's like, but what is the feeling you're looking for to getting to that point B? He's kind of like he's saying he's got to work for another 15 years yet, whatever it is. But what is that feeling? What is that? And what's the underlying feeling of that? Why not create that now? It's not there, it's here.
What stops people? Is it do you think that it is from it's society's message that stops people from doing that right now? Like from getting up tomorrow and going, because there's certain elements, I guess, like people listen and people go, well, it'd be great to think like that, but I've got a mortgage to pay, I've got this, I've got this, that, because if I just give it all up and that the money I get pays for that lifestyle that I've got, so if I give that all up now, then and do something else that doesn't bring me that financial security, because a lot of people crave security, don't they? They feel that's where happiness is. They've got that security. So I guess what is it that it's because society says that's where success is, because you've got security, you've got your house and you've got your mortgage, etc. But I guess what is that? Is that where it comes from?
Yeah, it's a belief. It's a belief, and it's a conditioning that when you achieve that, you've made it. When you've achieved that, you've got security. But none of us are secure. The last few years have shown us that every single person, you know, all these people that have been particularly ill, really ill, and actually some have passed, that you wouldn't expect for whatever reasons. You know, it's causing a lot of stress. The suicide rate is off the scale. All this time is showing us it's a spotlight on the fact that there is kind of only now. There's only now. We can only be in now. There's no such thing as a future anyway. No such thing as past, because there's only ever now, and that is all conditioning. And so recognizing and also letting go sometimes the fact that, well, because that your dad or your mum told you, often dads, I feel, just generalizing a little bit, you know, because possibly because they didn't quite succeed in their eyes, that if that is the belief that that's the point that will make you, and that's the success story, it's understanding that actually what you're trying to achieve is that feeling. If you think about it, it's only the feeling you're looking for. It's not actually the car, it's the feeling of driving it. It's not the big house with the drive, it's the feeling of being in it. Because this is all illusionary. What we see is illusionary. This is 3D world. We are multidimensional beings. We don't exist just in the 3D body form. This is an avatar. You know, so recognizing the feelings, the inner feelings, the multidimensional side of ourselves is what we're really seeking, if you think about it. Ask any entrepreneur, what is the drive? And that's where it's important to say, no, it's the experience that we need to get that feeling in, the general everyday. And actually, often, when you actually let go of that financial kind of requirement or the house or whatever, start creating that feeling in you now, you won't want the house, because you realise there's an amazing movie producer from Hollywood who's just released a movie. I'm sorry, I can't remember it, but I can let you know. You can put it in the link. And he was about to buy his next mansion. He's divorced, lives by himself, and he was about to buy the sort of 38-room mansion because he just left his 26-room mansion in Beverly Hills. He got to the front door and realised, what the hell am I doing? What is this all about? Didn't buy the house, got in the car and drove. And he drove and he created a movie about why we exist and what really is the point of us. And it's one of the most beautiful, powerful movies I've ever seen. And he was the producer of, the director of The Mask. He's done a load of Jim Carrey movies. So, and it comes back to that. He was always looking for that feeling, and he realised that, so he went on the road to look for it instead. And he worked out that actually the feeling is to be, the feeling is to exist with others and feel the presence of that richness. Because the word rich is a really interesting word. We all want to be rich, But, you know, if I gave you £50 million of Monopoly money now, all right, and I say, I can turn that into real money if you want me to.
Yeah.
Okay, but look at that 50 minutes and let's think about how you'd feel.
Yeah.
So you create that feeling of feeling really wealthy.
Yeah.
Now hold on to that feeling and go outside and give the £5 note in your pocket to the first person you see is homeless. You'll get the same feeling. Because that is the feeling of richness when you recognise that this is an abundant world, and that feeling of richness and of helping others. Because actually that's all buying cars and everything is. It's all just an exchange process. Yeah. I think that answered your question, Sam.
Amazingly, actually. Amazingly. What a brilliant way of looking at it is. And what I take from that as well is about, and a lot of obviously what you're saying is so much, and something I'm mindful of, and I try and talk to myself about a lot and try and check in about being present all of the time. And it's difficult to do. I'm on the path, I'm on a journey to try and find, but I'm definitely not there, because my brain does wander, even when I'm with the kids sometimes, and I criticise myself for it, and I get 1 minute and I'm looking at my phone, I'm answering that email late at night and work silly hours, and I'm trying to just go, right, I'm going to do that, and I'll be present 100% in that. Whether I do love my work and I do love things I do, so I think it's okay to be present in them moments and enjoy that, but still be able to come out, and because that's where, I guess what you're alluding, that's where that true joy and happiness is, when you're 100%, whatever it is you're doing at that particular earning time, you're 100% in and present in that moment. Yeah,
and that's where we feel rich, it's where we feel wealthy, that's where we feel we are tapping into ourselves, we can explore ourselves. And so few people do that, they don't give themselves time. I really recommend everyone just spends 5 minutes before they do anything in the morning, just sat still, eyes closed, open, whichever, breathing. Just breathing, and you can call it meditation if you like. You could do it for half an hour or 10 minutes, do some journaling after, whatever the thoughts come in, or pictures. Give yourself time just to allow yourselves to exist in a minute, and if you can do this throughout the day, you just stare into something, you know, like the walls in here, like the green, just stare at it for 2 minutes and switch off. Just allow yourself just to switch off. It's creating a conscious awareness, or Buddhist practice, and it gives yourself time just to become in your body, and that's a whole nother thing I'm very passionate about, is that the existence for humankind in the developed world, there's an irony, is up here. You know, the existence is here. This is where all the stress is. We're not just in our brain. We've forgotten our hearts, and dropping into the heart consciousness and allowing yourself to breathe through you start breathing, you'll naturally, your internal systems, your chakras will start engaging with each other more. And that's where our truth is, that's where our presence is, that's where our richness is. It's in our hearts, and dropping into that and allowing that true sense of feeling and of love. It's real simple. All you need is love, and it's one of the most overused sayings, but it's the most underused too, because actually that's where the love is, for yourself, for your family, for all that you have around you. And then suddenly the flashy Ferrari
is irrelevant.
It's just a car, isn't it? But it's not. I'm not saying it's not a car. I'd love to drive one. I've never driven one. Everyone's listen's got one spare, then I'd love to drive it. I'm a really good driver. I've had my driving.
Me and Joan could go for a drive.
I've had my driving, done my driving lessons with the police. I'm pretty good, she says.
But one thing there then, and this is, I guess, more for me than, as I've mentioned a couple of times, this almost becomes therapy for me, the podcast, but it's me chat. But I find it, like, I've listened to that a lot, and I've heard a lot about that, taking that time, especially in the morning, and having them few minutes. And I've tried to even create a daily practice for myself where I don't pick up my phone straight away, because I'd literally, regular as clockwork, I'm straight in the toilet when I get up, and there's phones with me, and you look, and straight away you're on that thing. But trying to not even take the phone to the toilet, so I can just have a couple of minutes, whatever that looks. But personally, I find it very difficult. I know a lot of entrepreneurs and people I do speak to sometimes is that, because our lives are busy, and because the brain is constantly thinking of new ideas or thinking of stuff, to actually sit there and breathe for a few minutes, I find that really difficult. find it. Like I've really struggled with meditation. In all honesty, I haven't practiced enough, which I think with anything in life you need to practice. But I find it very difficult to be able to just sit there and actually switch off completely. I find that like. And would you advise, is it just practice? Is it something like for that, like you've just almost force yourself to sit there and breathe for them few minutes, and if you do it on a regular basis it will become more natural?
It will, because ironically, let's just scratch out the word meditation. It puts a lot of people off, and it's actually a barrier, sadly, for a lot of people. It's just breathing. It's just breathing and presence, and we're present now, even if part of you might be thinking about the next episode, whatever, it doesn't matter, you're still present now. So we can do that bit. So the next bit is just breathing and being in our body. So that is all that is needed. And isn't it ironic? It's the thing that we're born doing. My children struggled, they were premature to breathe. And I watched them struggle to breathe when they were born, but they soon mastered it because they realized they had to. So actually almost seeing it as that, if we're not breathing properly, if we're not being in our bodies properly, we're not surviving very well. We're going into all these other nervous systems, we're thriving on them, and the other day I had an idea that we need there's NA and there's AA, we need a CA, cortisol anonymous.
Right, okay.
Because cortisol's the drug that gets going, isn't it, when we live on adrenaline. And people are used to living on adrenaline, people are addicted to living on an adrenaline. And so it's almost like we need to get addicted just to breathing, just to breathing deeply, breathing into our abdomen. So I would offer, it is just practice, just like learning a new sport, obviously, but we know what this sport is like because it's just the sport of breathing.
We all know how to do it, but
just every day. And honestly, I was the same. It took me ages to get my head around and get used to the experience of doing nothing. Mum of two, quite a lot going on. I just prioritised it, Sam. I did it every single day. Every single day. And now I do it every single day, and I do it throughout the day. And, I even managed to do some meditation on a ferry. The ferry was delayed, and it was a packed-out ferry. And I thought I was going to lose it, actually. The day had gone so opposite to what we thought. It was really late. I was incredibly tired. And I sat down in the middle of this canteen and this big ferry, surrounded by screaming kids, and I just breathed, and I closed my eyes and dropped into my body, and I even surprised myself, thought, crikey, and I almost fell asleep.
Wow.
Which is but 3 years prior to that was about 3 years ago. There's no way I could have done that. So practice, I promise you, it does get easier to breathe. Forget calling it meditation, and give yourself 5 minutes. Sometimes music can help. So putting earphones in with some really relaxing music that is just very kind of like white noise music. 432 hertz is the healing frequency. So I really recommend like going on YouTube or wherever. 432 hertz is the healing frequency that will really support the healing system. And just breathing slowly. Not necessarily deeply. It doesn't have to be this big kind of Wim Hof thing. You don't need to jump in an ice bath. Do that too. But it's really super simple. Just do it every day, and I promise you, I'll check in with you in a month. If you're going to promise me on air now, you're going to do it.
You know what? I am, because I really truly believe that, and because I've spoken to a few, and again, it's probably something I ask on every single person that comes on the podcast, because it is something I really struggle with. So. And I know that with anything I do, I'm training for a marathon, so I know for me to train to a marathon, I've got to get up and I've got to go out for a run, and I do them things. One, it's a habit now, and I enjoy that exercise, but I do, and because I've always played sport, I understand the process behind it, and I still don't practice it, and I know, and I'm searching for that piece, I guess, and that thing, being able to just switch off for a bit, because I know it will help, and it relates a lot, I guess, to. So I wanted to tap in as well. It's a lot to. I listened to a really interesting podcast about rest the other day and how important that is, and they actually talked about this a little bit on that around. We're so, even when we're on a train, whereas before we didn't have phones, and you just actually watch the world go by, and you're staring into space, and you have those moments of rest, mindfulness, rest. Whereas now, any time we've got, we look on our phones. Where if you're going and you've got to stand in a queue, for example, for a long period of time, you're just straight away you're going on your phone. You won't talk to the person in front, or you won't just stand and watch the world go by. And I think I'll listen to that and listen to you talk as well, and it's all so relevant because you sort of look at these things, and we live in this fast-paced world where we feel that we have to be busy all the time. We have to be productive, and we have to be and I'm really guilty of it, I suppose, that I'm busy. How are you getting on? Saying, yeah, really busy, like almost like it's this badge of honour because I'm so busy. I'm doing all these things, but that's not real success. Or if you're busy, why are you? So it's like just try and take those moments to. And I guess it comes back, but ultimately it just all comes back to what you're saying about being able to be mindful in your head and
recognising that you're choosing.
Yeah.
We don't live in a busy world.
Yeah.
We don't. We just live in our world.
Yeah.
But at the moment, you're seeing it as busy. I'd like to delete the word busy.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just delete it. It means nothing. It's like the word nice.
Yeah.
It means nothing. They're like, polystyrene words is what I call them. They've got some use, but they don't really serve anything.
Yeah.
Just delete it from your vocabulary.
Yeah.
So, what are you really? Okay, well, I've got a full day. I've got different things on today. The words we use are so powerful.
Yeah,
and if we constantly tell ourselves, "Oh, I live in a busy world. Oh, the phone's always distracting me." Do you know what? The phone will always distract you because you're telling yourself it will. Because we're actually very fickle and we're very simple. We do what our words tell us. We do what our thoughts tell us. But we can control our words and our thoughts. We can choose to give them out or not. So just being mindful of what you tell yourself, and also just start now. And also I'd really offer the one of the, God, I feel like this is like Joe's 10 kind of there's probably a book in here, Sam. We could write a joint book here going on.
I'm in.
Put it on Otter, publish it in 10 minutes, job done. That I feel that there's a whole kind of like a value of recognising that we can change instantly. And the key thing to any change is to allow it to be the journey, because it's not one thing or another. It's not that easy to suddenly stop. And then the F word comes in, not the word find, the word failure. So if you do find yourself suddenly on the train and you think, right, I'm going to definitely, on the train today, I'm going to sit there and I'm just going to look at the countryside going past. I'm just going to breathe, relax, and just allow my thoughts to mull around. That's conscious meditation. That's beautiful. But if you get distracted, if you suddenly think, and I do this all the time, oh, hold on, I wanted to check this. There's an email coming in. I've got to see if that's coming in from a client, whatever. Pick up your phone, look, put it down and go, swear. And then out comes the stick. Beat yourself up. Oh, God, I promised myself I wouldn't do that. Oh, bloody. And then that's the adult telling the inner child that you're wrong, you're bad, you're naughty. Don't do it. Don't do it. We're just on a journey. Yeah? We're just on a journey. And I think all these self-help books and everything are great, but it's never that simple. It's not about the tiny habits that... the Tiny Habits, to be fair, is probably one of the best books out there, I think. Because there is tiny habits, and it's actually being mindful of what are you telling yourself. And we live in a governance society at the moment. I pray every day that will soon change. And I'm not just talking about the politicians in Parliament, but this constant kind of, there are so many of my clients come to me and they are used to telling themselves off. We don't need to tell ourselves off. We can just be mindful and say, actually, yeah, I did do that, and that is not what I planned. I'm going to be extra mindful next time, and sit and definitely look outside and watch the countryside go past while I'm on the train. Because otherwise it's that negative positive energy thing, and you're going on the negative into the shadow energy frequencies of fear, shame, guilt, blame.
That's the thing, is the guilt. Sometimes it's the guilt when you run lots of business, you think there's always something to do, and that's what I find really interesting, what you've said about the letting go, because there's always something to do. So if you can't let go of that, you always got something to do. So then when you're not doing something to do with the business, when you are just sitting watching telly or just sitting breathing or whatever you're doing, just trying to have a moment, there's the guilt level that comes in, and you feel guilty about not. I've got all these things I've got to do. I'm really, my big thing is trying to train myself to go, I know that there's always going to be something to do, so have them, because they're still going to be there when I come back, so have a moment, enjoy that moment and be present in it, and then you'll come back and that'll still be there anyway, and not feel guilty. I think there's still, again, there's that narrative there that we have to feel, because we've got to be productive all the time, and feel guilty about if we're not.
So should we do this now? You ready?
Yeah.
So what is the guilt message?
For me, it's that I feel that there's so many things that I've got to do. So for me, I'm telling myself, that needs to be done now. That needs to be done now. So
what's the feeling underneath that, though? What's the feeling you're ignoring underneath that?
I don't know. I guess that again, I guess I need to keep doing those things to achieve what I'm trying to achieve, what the ultimate goal is, which again you look at it again, now we're going to go deeper, I don't really know necessarily what that ultimate goal is and what you're trying to achieve because of all these different things.
So I'd offer that you're seeing all of those things that you do as or having to be perfect, or having to exist at a certain level with certain expectations fulfilled. Ain't ever going to happen. No, it's just not ever going to happen. Or it might, but maybe just for a bit here and there, because everything is continuously changing. Change is the only constant in life. Change and death, really. So allowing that to exist, just allowing that, it will always be that. It will always be that. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to all exist at a level of, and that's a blueprint that you've got in your mind of how it could exist in its perfect state. Show me anything that's in its perfect state, Sam.
You're right.
Technology. Look how much technology has evolved. Does it still crash? Yep. Does the internet go down? Yep. Does Microsoft launch a new product and it bombs out? Yep. So if that can exist for giants that are spending millions, whatever zeros on technology, if they can still create something that is not perfect, then how are you? Why should we expect you, Sam, to create perfect businesses? And ultimately, if any business involves any level of human contact, you'll never get perfect, because people aren't perfect. They're perfectly imperfect, is what they are. And people will continuously change. And that's the joy. That's the life of contrast. That's what we signed up for, to come here in this life. But the underlying message, and perhaps I would offer dig deeper, who's expecting you to be perfect, really? Where's that message coming from? Who's the voice? Where's that voice coming from? And sometimes we can literally pinpoint it, that there's a point in your past generally. And sometimes it's past lives, because I do past life work as well. But sometimes it's, generally speaking, it's something in this life, someone, generally a parental figure, generally a dad or a teacher, someone who was important to you, that told you or demonstrated to you that to be a good person, you need to do this. To be a good person, you just need to be you. And we're here to be good and bad and ugly too. Just delete that then, just let that go. All these parents that gave all these messages, they only gave these messages from a place of love, because it's what they knew. But I'm not sure on your age, Sam, but definitely my parents, I'm feeling our parents' kind of age group, they were kind of the ones that were on that tipping point of morality, values, conditioning. Post-war, it was that last leg of, we don't have very much, it's a place of lack, we've got to do what we're told, because otherwise we won't eat, we've got to do what we're told because we've got to pay our taxes. And I feel that we're all in this place, entrepreneurs, so many, of actually saying, like hell have we got to do what we're told. We can exist in our truth, we can exist our own way, we don't need to follow this narrative anymore. But in that point, to do that, we also need to let go of these old narratives that our parents kindly, with love and with the best reason for doing so. They thought they'd serve us.
Yeah.
We can let go of those. It doesn't mean we're showing disservice to them. It doesn't mean we don't love them. And just saying, actually, I'm choosing to live my life my way. They're the old systems, and look where that's brought us.
Yeah.
If we're all living in this cookie cutter way, that's the lower conscious living, and we're not here to be that. We're coming out of a coma.
Yeah.
Coming out of a coma.
Wow. There's so many amazing things to take away from it. I think I want to bring it back a little bit. I don't want it to be a complete therapy session for me. But listen, so valuable. I guess so many people that listen, people that I speak to a lot and talk to me in the same way as I'm talking to you. So I know how helpful it's going to be. But I do want to talk then. We go on to a bit about the book and obviously the publishing. I know that the recent one you brought out about men, where you got men sort of involved and talking a bit more vulnerably and openly about a lot of the pressures and mindsets. I guess to talk to me a little bit about that, and obviously the working with men within the book being fine, and because we again average things, fine, everything's okay.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to talk a little bit about the book.
Sure.
And
And actually, I've just remembered the other question you asked me was about how I got into spirituality.
Yeah.
So it's all kind of related, actually.
Yeah.
So being fine, the other F word. This was a message from Spirit to create this book. So I'd published Women Leading and Silver Linings, and I was meditating one day, and this is the danger of meditation.
Okay.
It's I wouldn't have it any other way. It's incredible to open yourselves up to different messages, different vibrations. And Spirit came through and said, right, you've got to create a book for men. And I actually said out loud, you're kidding me. And the message, no, it's got to be for men, supporting men's health. And obviously on the back of so much of my work, I'm patron of a charity called Soul Sisters, is about women and equality, and I've done a lot of, but it was so strong, and also to work with men, this real calling, and when these messages happen, they land. It's not like a fleeting thought. It kind of lands, it comes into me, and it's like it is embodied. And so I couldn't say no, and it felt like this real calling, and so I gathered 14 men and 2 women, and they're all incredible people who just came into my, obviously, because then I embodied it and I embraced it, and then they all came towards me, and all these different voices. Reverend Casey from Georgia, he was brought up on the streets of Georgia, one of the roughest parts of Georgia. Everything that could happen to someone in a rough part of a city happened to him. He ended up in prison, and he suddenly had a moment where he realised that he could choose to not be a victim, and he made that choice. And now he's a double reverend. He became a Christian reverend, and now he's become a spiritual reverend. And he's an absolute beautiful soul. Simon Walker took himself up to the top of a mountain in Wales, in the bleakest of weather, just to die peacefully in nature, because he'd had enough. He had 2 boys, divorced, felt like his life had ended, so he decided to try and end it. And he was walking up the hill and didn't get very far, because this guy came along and said, "Oh, God, you must be..." And he was only in a shirt. He didn't have any proper weather gear on, obviously. And the guy came along and said, "Oh, what are you doing? You must be lost." And he said, "Yeah, I am lost," or something like that. I'm probably misquoting it, but basically that. And he said, "Oh, well, I can help you down off the mountain. Just come with me." And this incredible, I'm getting goosebumps talking about it, almost like an angel, because nobody would go out in this weather, came in and obviously walked him back to the village. And then he really started to just connect with himself. He was a builder. The building trade is prolific for mental health issues. And ultimately, the fundamental and the core message in all of them is that letting go of what they'd been holding on to. I'm about to publish the 2nd edition, actually.
Amazing.
There's the oldest voice in the books now will be 70, Robert Gore from Hawaii. He cried for, I think, 2 weeks. He'd never cried in his life. And he went on a retreat, actually, And he cried for 2 weeks pretty much, and he let it all go. And he let go. He was a doctor. He's like, knew how to be healthy. He was so unhealthy. Let it all go, kept crying, kept releasing, and realised that the grief in him was held, and it was having this impact on him. Let it all go, and it transformed his life. And he got together with his childhood sweetheart, and incredible stories of really hitting rock bottom, and letting go of what was there, allowing themselves to exist in their full presence, is the key. And also is the point to realising that we're so much more. So going back to your first your question about spirituality,
Yeah.
I can't be more spiritual than you, Sam. Or there's a friend of ours who says, "Oh, I'm not spiritual," and if he's listening to this, he'll know exactly who he is.
Yeah.
Yes, you can't not be. You can't not be. You are spiritual. We are all spiritual. We're all psychic. We all have a third eye. We're all able to have intuition and let our intuition guide us. But I was a baby. I remember being literally a baby. In fact, I remember before I was born, asking God. I knew I was being born into a difficult family, and I asked God. I literally remember feeling this sense of injustice, saying, "You're joking me. Why am I here?" So I do believe completely in previous lives. I almost feel like I'm not on this earth. The word Palladian, if it means anything to anyone listening to this, then, or Arcturian, but anyway, there is so much more to this universe. This is a multiverse. Yeah. But I connected with God as a baby, and I remember saying, "Well, why, God, am I here?" and starting this conversation. And when I was like going up through my childhood, I continued to ask this question. The answer I got was that I was with Adam. And as I've explored my true soul, so we're all an individual soul running through different various lives, I was given the message that I'm part soul of Lilith. Lilith and Adam were the splitting of the first being, the man-woman. Yeah. And Lilith came before Eve. That's a whole other story, but Adam wanted to govern Lilith. This is all written about in the Bible, hidden away a bit in the Bible, actually, funnily enough, because it doesn't really serve the religious messages. Yeah. So that was my beginning with spirituality, and I've always had other kind of experiences of going into other dimensions. I've gone to the highest point. I've connected with God energy, and I connect very easily with spirits. We can see who's around now if you want, Sam. Your face is a picture.
But that blows my mind a little, because and I guess many people, like I guess the friend that we're referring to, maybe there are people that are quite cynical out there about spirituality, I guess, in saying that. But I'm keen, you're saying that you recognise from a young age, but you obviously got to a point in your even through your childhood. Then, was you always felt that you was in touch with your spiritual side, or has it been more revealed later in life, and then you've been able to go back and look at that?
So I've always, to the point where when I used to go I remember being at 3 or 4, going to the bathroom and thinking, "Oh no, God can see me pee. That's gross." That's how ingrained it was in me.
Wow.
And spirits can see me. Like when I was getting changed in my bedroom, it's like, so all these ghosts can see me naked. This is a bit weird, And I remember used to like pull the curtains extra tight, and think, oh no, I just felt made. So it was just, there was never any question for me. There is obviously way more. My mum was very open to spirituality, so we used to do Ouija boards.
Okay.
And I was the scriber, so I'd sit there and make the notes, and then I did my own Ouija boards from about age 9, but completely respectfully. And it's really anything to do with other dimension spirits. Yeah. It's so important to be respectful. It's all energy, and they're all entities, and I really truly believe that. And so it was innate in me, really, and the experience through the Ouija board and connecting with all these different lives that came through, like hundreds of lives. I used to write down, like someone from the Spanish Armada. a young boy from Swansea that died of cancer, who gave a message for his mum. No, there was 7 of us in the room. Nobody knew anyone to do with Swansea, and we contacted this woman, and my mum did, and she was so grateful. And obviously, it's got to be treated very carefully.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Some people, the last thing to want to do is, it's such a feared actually area. But
I think that's it. I think more people are probably, I guess speaking for me, like, I've never really thought a great deal about spirituality. I guess whether I believe it or not, I guess I'm not too sure. Even the kids like now they will say about God or something. I think I'd like to believe that there's a higher power, or there's life after this. I'd like, in my head, I'd like to believe that. Whether I actually do or not, I don't know. I don't think I've probably given it enough time to sort of think about it. And it's interesting to see that, like, so obviously there was an influence, I guess, in some way, if your mum was, or your parents were into spirituality, so you've had that upbringing within that environment, which would obviously be more open-minded to it than maybe more other people.
Yeah, no, spiritual, knowing that there is so much more than what I am, was like I say, it was just I just knew that truth was within me, and I would offer that people that are cynical are actually people that are choosing to forget because it's too fearful. Because actually, a big part of letting go of being just human is recognizing that we're so much more. We're so much more powerful. So if something called God created this earth, then what does that mean that we are? It means that we're a hell of a lot more than we think we are. Yeah. It means that essence of energy is within all of us, because we're just part of the planet. We're just part of nature. Nature is everything, and so that is in all of us. And exploring that maybe in your new breathing time in the morning, just asking yourself the questions. I really, I'm not here to tell anyone to think a certain way, believe a certain way, but I absolutely know that we all have the truth within us. And if you give yourself time to ask yourself, and give yourself time to really explore those questions within yourself, and you don't need to, you could just do it walking the dog. You can do it wherever. I like driving and meditating, and I'll do a bit of audiobook driving, and then I'll switch it off, and I'll just think and let thoughts mull along, with no music on or anything as I'm driving long journeys. Whatever works, but the truth is within us. I really believe that, and I have found my truth. I fell out with God for a number of years, because actually I went to one of those awful Church of England schools that made you sit on the wooden floor for an hour every morning, listen to some hairy-nosed vicar who scared the bling lights at me, frightened me to death about God. So actually I decided God was a joke from about the age of 7, but I had faith in something, and I knew that I and everything was much more than what I saw is what I knew, but it took me another 30 years to really understand what I believed God is as a point of creation, as an essence, and it's a mother-father God. It's not. I do go to a Christian church actually, but I absolutely tell them I am not. I don't need to call myself a Christian. I just believe in that there is a creator. There is an essence of what we all are within us, and that we can finding that faith. For me, has given me that anchor, given me that absolute, and I know most of my life. I've had thousands of lives. I know a lot of them now. And actually, what it's like, if anyone's just to lighten up a bit, because it all gets quite heavy. But, if you ever have any recurring dreams of something that's in the past, so one of mine was I'm in these really long robes, kind of. Early 1900s or late 1800s, and I'm stood on the cliffs in Ireland, and I can picture the cliffs really clearly, and there's an old stone cottage nearby. Had this dream recurring again and again. If anyone has a recurring dream like that, I would offer that's a past life of yours. And also if you have anything that's karmic, so any kind of strange reoccurrence in your life. So for me it was narcissists. You know, wherever I turned, I'd bump into a narcissist. You know, and they'd really, try and piss me off, obviously, and it would be very difficult. It was only allowing what existed within me and looking at that, going, right, okay, what's this showing me? And then I realised that was a past life of mine. I used to be a narcissist in a past life. I was freaking horrible. You know, we've all been everything. We've all been, every type of, and so that helped me to look at it, because part of my work actually, the fundamental core part of my work is healing, and I heal the soul. I heal the shadows around the soul. Carl Jung talks about the shadows around the soul, and I can do the healing on it like Reiki. I'm Reiki qualified. I do Reiki on the soul, because if you can heal the shadows around the soul, you can then exist in your true essence of who you are. And it's the shadows, actually. It's those kind of that baggage that we carry that stop us being who we really are, that stop us allowing our light to shine, that keep us in this narrative and this paradigm, this craziness of 3D, and that is what I feel holds people back, is recognising that they are way more than that. That we're here to all be the beacons of light, and to be, who we choose to be, and to be great, not just small or cookie cutters or minions.
Love that. Wow, it's really powerful, and I've always been, I'd like to think, a very open-minded person, so, and it's especially something that I guess I haven't explored enough, don't understand maybe, or haven't looked into to explore, to have those answers. It's fascinating to listen to you talk about it with such passion and clarity. I guess, like 100% that's what you believe, and it's an amazing place to be for you, I guess, and ultimately all of us are searching to find out who we really are and what our purpose is, and etc., and all those things that we sort of alluded to across the whole of the conversation that we've been having. And it's so interesting to listen to you talk about it in that way.
Oh, thank you.
That's really powerful. Yes, but anyway, I'm keen as well. Let's. I want to talk. We mentioned a bit about the men, and that's fascinating about that subject and the narrative. Because, like I said, I think you're right. That narrative out there has got to change, and think like your book, and allowing people those spaces to be able to be a bit more vulnerable. Because do you feel that there's been a shift since lockdown over the last couple of years? Do you think there's been a shift in, not just with men, but in general with people you speak to, that their mindsets have changed slightly? That there is more out there. I've got more purpose-driven now, and as opposed to how it was before, and able to talk more openly and freely. Have you found that a little bit, like events or whatever people you speak to?
Yeah, I absolutely do, and I hear it and I see it and I feel it. I think what has happened is, ironically, by people being at home, by people being empowered, by sat on their own sofa in their own home, and going on Zoom. Firstly, it has created an equal platform. So if you're in a big corporation or whatever you are, and you've ended up being, 1 by 2 inch square on a Zoom screen next to the CEO, next to you, it's equal as we are always equal. Completely different dynamic to sat around a boardroom. Completely different dynamic to a building. Some companies got brilliant high. The top guys are on the presence
of people, I guess, as well.
Absolutely. But all that perceived hierarchy has been wiped clean, because everyone is just this big on a screen, and they're all looking at each other, and they're all equal. And what that's enabled many people to do, I think, is to suddenly feel connected with who they are, and actually see themselves as equal. And so, you could almost just thank Zoom for it, or there are other platforms. I promise you I'm not on sponsor here. They're not dropping, they're not slipping me 5k for mentioning them 4 times. But they, I feel it's created that an ability for us to really step into ourselves and actually allow ourselves to be stronger in who we are, stronger in our essence. We've been more real. We've had the kids and the dog come in mid-important meeting. It's been a really good leveler. And so it's also given people a big opportunity to look at what their lifestyle is, why am I spending 4 hours a day commuting? Why am I choosing to go to a place, and put on a suit I don't even wear? Not everyone wears suits anymore, but just even women, men put on clothes they don't want to wear, and put on this kind of front. Put on this. It's all about the putting on, but actually they've just been themselves more, and people have they've given themselves more time to say, well, actually, this is important to me. The values of so many people has been reset. And I think it's incredible. It's one of the gifts. I mean, one of my books was Silver Linings, which is all about these amazing positives of lockdown. I don't like saying lockdown. The time when people were told to stay at home. Some of us didn't. But it was a very incredible gift in a way. And I think, like you're saying, Sam, a lot of people connected with themselves more. And actually, that's the corner you need to turn. Once you've turned that corner, then it's all amazing, because every day then people are leaving sales left, right and centre. The people, these incredible souls that signed up for doing this like hard-nosed, proper cutthroat sales work, leaving in their drones. One guy on LinkedIn, he's got 40,000 messages on a LinkedIn post because he went from top sales honcho to postie. Biggest smile that you've ever seen. And he's happy as Larry. Because going back to what you're saying about the targets and the goals, his perceived target and place and point of reference for contentment was a certain size house. But actually, once he recognised that house was where he lived now, or maybe just the next size up slightly or different, then that is the fulfilment. And delivering letters every day now is his fulfilment. So it's been an incredibly exciting time actually for humanity on many, many levels. And so I think that's one thing that you can really see in corporates.
I really agree, actually. And I hope that I've noticed, especially from someone that networks a lot and goes out and sees people, and it was just because ultimately we was on Zoom and you couldn't go, especially a lot of industries, mine especially at one point before I launched County Business, couldn't go on there and talk about firm balls and say we're an events company and we're how are you getting on, Sam? Great, everything's. It was absolutely terrible. So you was forced to be more honest, I think, and people. But what I'm hoping is that, because I definitely have seen a shift, and I think people, even from messages on social media and stuff, people are okay and saying it's okay to be a bit more vulnerable. It's okay to say things are not great at the minute. I am struggling, to be honest. And people can respond to that in a different way. You're not weak because you're showing a bit of vulnerability or things are not going that well. And I really hope that we've taken, like you said, there's been a huge shift, and I hope that we continue on that path as opposed to going back to, because ultimately, if we put that mask on, we can only wear that for so long, can't we, before our true self comes out. Otherwise, you're going to live quite a miserable life if you're constantly wearing a mask, and I think...
And it takes its toll. It takes its toll, and ultimately on the body. It will manifest in heart attacks. It will manifest in all sorts of conditionings, addictions, because the body eventually takes, says no. But it is about the mask, and I think, like you say, we're being at home, being on Zoom, the mask has come off. And people are really, everyone's been through this collective time of unusualness and difficulty together. So naturally we can actually be more, and that's the key. And what I feel like you're saying is now it's the time for corporates to really get to grips with this, to really, really put their own cultures under the spotlight and say, what do we do for our employees, really? I'm not talking about bonuses. I'm not talking about incentive schemes that do this trip and that trip. I'm talking about proper welfare. And I'm talking about real systems in place that enable the staff to have somewhere to go, to have someone to contact, that they can talk about when things aren't good, because the workplace is what can, and I was speaking to someone recently who's got like a small business but quite substantial, and one of his employees is going into work and exploding on a regular basis. The repercussions of that are immense. So anyone listening to this that's got a corporate, if you know this is going on, you're not doing anything about it, the repercussions of that are incredible. So already it's cost productivity, because the knock-on effects of him and his behaviour have caused problems between two groups of employees, have caused jobs to fail, have caused brand disruption, because obviously a localised firm, they've got to stay. So the ripple effects of not supporting your employees are immense. And you will not even get to see or sniff them for another year, some of them. But ultimately, it's not, you can't just create a perfect, rose-tinted culture all the time. But seriously, it's time that we create that Zoom feeling, everyone being equal and everyone mattering. Mattering? Is that a word? No, it's not.
We'll use it.
Ask the publisher. But everyone does need to matter, and everyone does need support. And actually, I implore anyone listening with a business that I'm working with a guy called Neil Lawton, who I know you know. We're doing corporate sessions now, because he comes at it from obviously the adventure and really embracing our exciting part of our nature, and I come from the compassionate, really embracing what you are on an emotional level. These are important messages to get into cultures, and it's got to come from the top though. There's no good, absolutely waste of time, CEOs employing staff, employing trainers, mentors like me to come in and give workshops, if they're not going to walk the walk, talk the talk.
They're not going to embrace it
themselves. They've got to do it themselves, and then they've got to model it. They have to be the ones that make that point. Focus Group is a local business.
I know.
They have a family, and I know the CEO, and either one that's just left, still just gone through selling. I've met some of the employees now. That is a family. They nurture each other, and you can feel it when you speak to even the people that are doing like the really basic jobs within that company. That is what corporates can be. They can be a family.
And that's a strong culture. That's where the strong culture lies, isn't it?
And they will produce the most. They will have the least sickness, the least amount of absence, the most loyalty. The recruitment rate will be minimal. Every CEO, anyone listening to this will know this. But pull your finger out and fricking get on with it. No point just looking at this. No point just talking about it. Get on with it. Admit your culture is not what it could be, and admit that it's not been ideal. There's the blame shame game is over. It's done. I feel like it's done for everything, even equality. It's done. There's no point. It gets us nowhere. It's time to just take action, create and just have a time, say, right, this isn't right. Your figures might be brilliant. You might be selling. You might be hitting all your targets. If you're not looking after your employees, it will only last for a certain amount of time. The emotional intelligence of people is the most valuable intelligence they have, and you've got to allow that to thrive and exist. And I really believe that as AI grows, creative intelligence can grow. Let your employees be creative. Let them ask them, what would you like to do differently? Or how do you think the FD could be better? Ask them that question. Because, the people that have a bit less to do and aren't so stressed, they observe, they see. And I do a lot of volunteering work for a men's homeless charity. And these guys see everything, because they take the time to, and obviously they have the time to because they live on the streets, but they see everything. And I'd say that there are people in your work, that your businesses, that will see the better ways to do things than you'll ever see them. Ask them how to run the office.
I love that. It's something I find, because culture is something I generally always talk about. It's brilliant to hear you talk like that, and I think that it's the backbone of any business. If you've got a strong culture, I always talk about when I had to sell it, I got it completely wrong. I know I did. I went in with a preconception of what that would look like and what I should be as a boss and not a leader, and I don't think I inspired people, and I learned so much from that failure. But one of the things why I always talk about it on here is culture, because it is the backbone of and the heartbeat of a business. If you've got that strong culture, it will manifest and grow and be a successful business based on. And I think so many people, we talked about on a previous podcast as well about emotional intelligence, emotional value, that is how. Wouldn't it be amazing if actually success of a business was measured on that as opposed to economic value?
Well, it is really. It is really, because if you're not looking at if that isn't being nurtured, then eventually it will catch up.
Yeah.
Because there will be, and yes, okay, you can just about manage that, and you can if you drive people to the nth degree. But ultimately, it is really, because that is what takes its toll. And people have been given this permission to be more real with themselves. So I really, especially, this is a crucial time for business, crucial time for economies everywhere, because there is crazy things going on with energy, and the economy generally. So businesses are in a beautiful time now, beautiful space to grasp that momentum of what we've just come out of, and say, I'm going to look after my stuff. Whatever happens, I'm going to look after my stuff, and that includes me. That includes the CEO. The CEOs must give themselves time to down tools. And I was speaking to someone the other day who's like on his knees. It's like, you've got to give yourself time to be you and to not be the CEO, and to download, because if you don't, and you are at the key point. I mean, I'd offer that actually every culture is strong. Every culture is strong. It's strong in itself, but what it needs to be is harmonious. What it needs to be is human, is what the culture needs to be. And that's not a commercial culture. A commercial culture is about the figures and the facts and about productivity. It's about humanness. It's about equality. It's about valuing people individually, because a toxic culture is strong, and the police, the Avon Somerset Police, when I joined, was one of the most toxic police cultures that existed at that time. When I went to training college with 14 other constabularies present, it was like, oh God, you're Avon Somerset, bad luck. It was renowned for being toxic. It was renowned for being sexist. One of the most toxic cultures that you could probably ever get. But especially thrown in with the pressure of doing that incredibly long-hour job and dealing with what we dealt with. That was a strong culture too. So I would offer it's not necessarily strong, because every culture, even if it's a three-person business or a 3,000 business, has a strong culture, but it has to be a harmonious one. It has to be a human culture that values the essence of what we are as humans. Allows and encourages people to come to work, to be themselves. Because if you're not allowing that, then you're asking people to not be who they truly are, putting on, like we're saying, putting on the mask, putting on the suit that isn't right for them. And why should someone give you that all if you're expecting them to do that? But it's got to come from the managers. It's their time to, and if not, then do something else.
That's brilliant. You're absolutely, I think you're spot on with it, and I think from that, like you say, hopefully there's a shift and there's a change in mindset, and so many companies, small, large, whatever that looks like, have come out of the last 2 years and almost been forced to. We've been forced to change things, haven't we? That's what COVID did. It forced us to change things, whatever that looked like, and to change that mindset around it and look at it from a different view. And that's how obviously change happens. And hopefully, like you say, we're moving in that right direction.
Yeah, I hope so, because ultimately, if we're not looking after ourselves, things can change in a heartbeat. It's one thing. Another thing that we've realised is that the people currently in place in our governance systems have the ability to press the stop and go button.
Yeah.
I mean, let's not even go there.
Well, that's another podcast.
Another podcast, that one, Sam. But they have. But ultimately, we've got to look after ourselves and we've got to look after each other. Because if there's any, and I am slightly men or women, but any bosses, any owners, any businesses, if they ask their partner, what would you prefer, me healthy and me alive 5, 10 years' time, or me on my knees, heart conditions, whatever, and and in a smaller house, so me in the big house, but on heart, or me in a smaller house, healthy, and us having just a happy, more joyful life. There's only one answer, I think, that most partners would give them. And so letting go of that idea that you're there to create that magic. There's no magic wand, there's only now, and just being in that now, being in that present is what we're here to do. And I hope people can hear that and do that.
Love that. No, listen, we're just coming towards the end. I knew it would be just fascinating. I could sit here for another 3 hours and chatting to you, and it's been amazing. But look, we are coming towards the end. I just wanted a couple of last sort of questions. Tell me, what does the future hold for you?
So the future hold for me, I've always had this, since I went there 20 years ago, this desire, this intention to be part UK based, and now I live here, obviously not in London anymore, so Sussex is a beautiful place for my lifestyle and business, and Santa Barbara, California. So I'm really actually, so one of my many previous lives was the Sioux tribe, so California is my true home.
Right, okay.
So the future looks for me probably half the year here, half the year there.
Wow.
I've got some clients there, but I'm growing my business there as well, and
Amazing.
to get onto the radio station, TV show as well, talking about purpose, about Dharma, what we're here for. That's what my future holds. And it will be probably, next time I'll be on the other side of the Atlantic, hopefully, Sam.
Wow. I'll come over there and we'll do it over there, if that's okay.
Great idea. Come on.
Brilliant. Well, look, we're going to finish as we'll do just a couple of quick fire questions. So the first one, what one piece of advice would you give to your 18-year-old self?
Yeah, I love this question. Forgive sooner and love more.
Love that. Brilliant. And then, as I've mentioned a few times, obviously this is something I've been doing for this series where my previous guest has left a question. So the previous guest left you this question, which was, if you could go back 5 to 10 years or to the start of your business career, what would you do, if anything, different?
Oh, that's a... Do you know, as much as there, I definitely would have liked to have already have the radio show now, already have half the business in California. Yeah. But that's, again, expectation. Yeah. The answer is nothing, because I now, the way I truly believe life is that we can value and enjoy and gain something from the experience of everything. And all the crazy intricacies of my business, I wouldn't change a thing. It's been a roller coaster ride, but I absolutely value all of it. So, nothing.
Love that. I love that. What an amazing way to finish. Jo, listen, I honestly can't thank you enough, and I guess apology for turning into a bit more of a therapy session for me. It was fascinating. I think that for me personally, there's so much. I can't wait to go back and listen to it again, and there's so many things to take away. And I'm sure a lot of listeners will as well. And
I mean, if anyone's listening, so I offer a 30-minute consultation for free. Amazing. So if you're listening to this and you're intrigued and you're listening to the way I'm, but also, I'm very good at what I do. I can get to the crux of what a challenge is, and if anyone's listening now, let me know. Text me or WhatsApp me or email me, jobaldwinmentor@gmail.com. Half an hour free call if there's a burning issue for you right now. Love to help you, because sometimes it just needs a different perspective. Can tweak it, can just look at it from a different angle, and I can get to the root of that challenge for you. You can let it go and on and carry on then being your happy, joyful self.
Amazing. Thank you so much. What a great way to finish. And that, as they say, is a wrap.